Good afternoon. A premature Merry Christmas. I understand Christmas isn't until a week from tomorrow, but we're going to bring a lot of Christmas flavor to you today. We welcome everybody who is here in house and our viewers on live stream. Thank you all for joining us. My talk today will be different from usual. Instead of discussing the background of each of the carols and the works on today's concert, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of censorship surrounding Christmas music, Christmas carol singing, and Christmas celebrations. We'll start with today, then go back to the earliest Christmas celebrations back in the 2nd century, and the wars on Christmas from then through today. Of course, who doesn't love our festive holiday traditions? The Christmas tree has been trimmed, stockings have been hung, the nativity is decorated, the elf is sitting on the shelf, and once again people are debating whether "Baby, It's Cold Outside," that Frank Lesser song, is a song about rape. Every December, the internet, and you can find it tonight when you go home, serves up a fresh batch of hot takes about Frank Lesser's 1944 jazz standard, "Baby, It's Cold Outside," as part of today's battle on Christmas. According to some, the lyrics promote date rape. According to others, including a radio station in Kentucky that plays the tune on continuous loop throughout the month of December, it's a harmless ditty and a Christmas classic. One commentator espoused, "Do we get to a point where human worth, warmth, and romance are illegal?" In some ways, "Baby, It's Cold Outside" squabble is as contemporary as it gets. It's an outgrowth of our political hypersensitivity. But it also fits into the long history of censoring and scrutinizing Christmas songs, hymns, carol singing, and the much larger debate over who gets to control the biggest holiday of the year. Like so many Christian rituals, singing carols is a holdover from the winter feast celebration originally called Saturnalia. It was a pagan festival when people sang and danced in a ring to honor the agricultural god Saturn, and celebrated the hope of a good harvest and a good new planting. By the 2nd century, when adapted to Christmas celebrations, Christians sang songs and danced around nativity scenes, though often with somewhat the same drunken abandon that had been part of the pagan festivities. Because of those origins, some church leaders tried to prohibit carol singing, while others sought to tame it, solemnize it, and limit it to certain places. For example, way back in the year 129, Jesus had only died about 99 years before that, Bishop Telesphorus of Rome exhorted believers to gather inside churches to sing Gloria in Excelsis Deo on Christmas Day. Singing outside of church was discouraged. Centuries later, St. Francis of Assisi in the 13th century and Martin Luther in the 15th century emphasized solemn carol singing as central to Christian worship and at Christmas time. Again, singing was encouraged only inside church. And of course, recording and broadcast technology was centuries in the future. But in the 17th century, it got worse. The rise of the Puritans brought a halt to carol singing of all types, both in England and here in North America. Puritans argued that the celebration of Christmas had no biblical support, condemned the celebration's pagan roots, and blamed the Catholic Church for embellishing the day with excessive ritual and pageantry. Opposed to feast days for both reasons of theology as well as social control, Puritans banned Christmas altogether in the 1640s, imposing strict penalties on anyone found celebrating it. Talk about a war on Christmas. For your Puritan authorities, singing carols was one of the gravest offenses because the practice could be traced to singing songs to the Roman goddess Ceres, because caroling was also usually involved with heavy drinking and bad conduct. In Scotland, Calvinist authorities cracked down on Christmas carol singing, especially hard, even imposing fines. Those who invited holiday singers into their homes could be fined £5, which is about 500 pounds in today's currency. In the city of Aberdeen, Scotland, more than a dozen women were arrested one Christmas for the crime of singing filthy Christmas carols on Yule Day. And at least one Calvinist minister, not named Ross Purdy, denounced the singing of carols as on par with the sin of fornicating. Even once the Anglican Church, the Church of England, restored Christmas in the late 17th century, early 18th century, religious authorities still allowed only a subdued observance of the holiday. Singing carols remained on the list of prohibitions. An Anglican minister named Henry Bourne decried carols as a disgrace because they were generally done in the midst of rioting and chambering. That's a euphemism for fornication and wantonness. Here on the next slide, you can see a public notice that celebration of Christmas is forbidden. Battles over carol singing continued through the 17th and 18th century in England, here in the American colonies, particularly in New England, because the argument was between the church and society, but also between different levels of society, because by then, carolers would go from house to house in rich neighborhoods, begging for money or refusing to stop singing until they were paid to go away. There were parades. There was a Calathumpian parade. Some of you may have heard about that, where people the mummers in Philadelphia are a derivative of that. They would go down the streets in costume, banging and shouting, making noises and singing various songs, mostly Christmas carols, in upper-class neighborhoods. And they would target these upper-class neighborhoods to get food and money. Upper-class people then complained bitterly about having their sleep disrupted for nights on end. One 19th century Englishman lamented that the carolers make night hideous for 3 weeks before Christmas with wretched performances of indifferent melodies. They also objected to singers demanding for their unwilling audiences to give them food, drink, and money in order to move on. We've all sung, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." Most of us don't know that the line, "We won't go until we get some," refers exactly to that. However, in the 19th century, by the middle of the 19th century, with help from business interests, the church managed to remake Christmas, transforming it from an unruly public affair into a quiet domestic occasion. The carols written then, mid-19th century, reflect more reverent feeling and were not rebellious. Think the first Noel, O Holy Night, We Three Kings, and Silent Night, all products of that era. But thanks to commercial capitalism, this quiet period was short. The late 19th, early 20th century, retailers, advertisers, and artists created a holiday of conspicuous consumption, which continues to today. This reimagining of Christmas gave it yet another public expression, although one built more around shopping than drinking, and more about singing and than worshiping. Of course, the boozy dimensions of Christmas never went away, as scores of office parties and SantaCon and so on still indicate. In this context, carols and songs accelerated Christmas commercialization, although not without controversy. Songs like Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I'm Getting Nuttin' for Christmas in 1955 emphasized the holiday's materialistic motives and helped promote products. The classic Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer began as a story to promote Chicago's Montgomery Ward department store. In 1939, it was given away by Montgomery Ward. It was a decade later that the Gene Autry version of the song climbed to the top of the Billboard pop singles for the week of Christmas 1949 and sold 2.5 million copies in its first year. The explosion of commercial-oriented Christmas songs in the 20th century was good for the music business, but arguably not so good for the faithful. Made many Christian leaders worry that the holiday's real meaning was being lost, especially for children who were the advertisers' chief targets, of course. Religious authorities who once condemned traditional Christmas carols for paying homage to pagan gods and celebrating libidinous pleasures now fretted that Americans were really worshiping the great god of consumerism and the songs they sang about presents, Santa, and the Christmas tree. Nowhere has this debate about Christmas songs been more fierce than in the nation's public schools. While critics often depict disputes over public school holiday programs as a recent development in the post-Christian era of political correctness, parents, teachers, communities have butted heads over the contents of these school assemblies since public schools first started holding Christmas pageants in the late 19th century. One early example, in 1906, 20,000 Jewish students stayed home from the New York City public school system to boycott their being forced to take part in a required holiday program that featured only Christian content. Jewish Daily News observed at the time, "We wonder what the Christian population would say if there were introduced in the schools Hanukkah exercises in commemoration of the Maccabean victory." But most of us in this room remember when the Supreme Court banned prayer in public schools in the early 1960s. Educators adjusted their Christmas programs, especially their musical content. Although the court rulings didn't deal with Christmas, school music directors and principals made the Christmas programs more understanding of other religions, not just Christianity. There would be a Hanukkah song or two, a song about the harvest, a few other things to make them a little bit more diverse. Superintendent of Arlington, Virginia, school system there, told the Washington Post in 1972 that their schools honored the traditions of Christmas, but they don't emphasize the religious aspect. Music in the schools represent the ecumenical nature of Christmas. But such accommodations kept holiday traditions alive in schools while keeping most parents and students happy, even as they elicited some pushback from us Christians. 1994, a Christian Coalition executive complained to the LA Times that the school system harmed students when it de-Christianized its school programs and limited Christmas carols. We're allowing our children to grow up without the beauty, the warmth. Christmas is such a beautiful thing, she said. But back to Baby, It's Cold Outside. Composed in 1944, Frank Lesser originally wrote Baby It's Cold Outside as a call and response duet for him and his wife. They performed it at a housewarming party at their own house while their guests were preparing to bid them goodnight. In 1948, they had adopted it and recorded it for the musical Neptune's Daughter. If you recall, the words go, "I really can't stay," she sings. "But baby, it's cold outside," he replies. Every excuse she offers to say goodnight, "My mother will worry, my father will be pacing the floor," he counters. Here are Idina Menzel and Michael Bublé singing with two young actors doing the honors.
Can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
I gotta go away.
Baby, it's cold outside.
This evening has been
Hoping that you dropped
so
in.
very nice.
I'll hold your hands, they're just like
My
ice.
mother will start to worry.
Beautiful, what's your
My father
hurry?
will be pacing the floor.
Listen to that fireplace
So
roar.
really I'd better scurry.
Beautiful, please don't
But
hurry.
maybe just a soda pop
I'll put
or
some records on while I
the
pour.
neighbors might think,
Baby, it's bad out there.
say, was that a wink?
No cabs to be had out there.
I wish I knew
Your
how
eyes are like starlight
to
now.
break this spell.
I'll take your hat, your hair looks swell.
I ought to get home for dinner.
Mind if I move
So
in
it's time
closer?
for me to cast you aside.
Oh, what's the sense of hurting my pride?
I really can't say.
Baby, don't hold out. Baby, it's cold outside.
Weren't they cute? Yeah. Yep. That's why this defense of Baby It's Cold Outside by Christmas Warriors is particularly odd. The song really isn't a Christmas song, makes no mention of Christmas, or even any other holiday. It just says it's cold outside. You know, it's very secular, it's somewhat sensual, it's clearly not sacred. And I don't think it's worth our time arguing about it. My point in mentioning that is that this secular song begs the issue and misdirects us in the wrong direction because we've become too thin-skinned and defensive about Christmas. As Christians, we know and celebrate the real reason for the season. We shouldn't allow ourselves to get sucked into senseless squabbles. We should lead by example with confidence and with our own faith, and we should model Jesus' behavior. In today's America, for the most part, we have moved past much of this censorship of the past. We can celebrate Christmas the way we want without fear. We can sing and play great Christmas songs here in church, in concert, in our homes, on the streets. We can even go Christmas caroling, and certainly we can listen to whatever we want on electronic media. We can mix in secular songs if we want as well. And today I have done that, one secular song, with a message to go with it. Every year for this concert, I enjoy selecting a variety of interesting musical arrangements from the huge amount that are available today. Today's concert, we sing 32 Christmas carols and songs. Some date back to medieval times, one to the 2nd century. Many were born in the 19th century. Some were written during our lifetimes in the mid and late 20th century. I think you'll immediately recognize just about all of them. Our theme is Tidings of Joy. We again tell the Christmas story, which is a story of peace, love, hope, and joy. We celebrate the wonderful and miraculous birth of the Christ child given for us and for everyone who believes. It's our hope and prayer that this concert will fill you with the peace, love, hope, and joy of the real Christmas. And now I invite the choir and the orchestra to join me so we can start the concert.